and thanks for joining us tonight. We have a great guest tonight, Tom Pratt. And Tom is in the insurance business, and does a lot of fire insurance, and that's a subject that hasn't been controversial at all, right? I mean, there's been no issues with fire insurance, no cancellations, no fires. We've had no risk profiles for fires, so it's all been. I mean, why are we here? I mean, it's.
Well, John, I mean, you've got to be kidding me. I mean, just coming into the studio, it looks like you're at the beach because it's so foggy almost because from all the smoke.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody this morning, and they were joking because if you look at all the weather forecasts, it just says haze. And it should be like they used to say on orange juice. There was orange juice and then there was orange juice with pulp, right? So now this is a, air with a particulate matter that you can ingest with it. So it's added pulp.
Exactly. I mean, just the other day, I was driving my boys back from school.
Yeah.
And it was daytime. And they said, "Daddy, that's the blood moon." I'm like, no, you're right. It looks like it, but it's not. That's the sun.
Wow.
And that's from all the smoke that we're seeing throughout the state.
Yeah.
These fires are out of control.
State of the industry. Tell us, what's the update? Where are we now on insurance coverage and stuff? How is it?
Well, what is happening now is there is just cancellation, non-renewal after non-renewal.
Still,
it's actually getting worse. I think every time I've come on the show, I say it can't get worse, but it is getting worse.
Right.
And I just constantly see and get calls from people that, I was just non-renewed, I was just canceled, this, and because the carriers are just packing up their bags and leaving. It's a terrible, terrible situation that we're in. It's a crisis.
Right. Now, with is the state actually stepping in enough to make it still functional? I mean, are you, there was an issue, I guess a couple years ago, 18 months ago, where there was the crisis of getting escrows closed and stuff like that, getting transactions completed. Is there enough of a higher risk profiles? Are you having issues that way, or are you still getting stuff, or are we getting where you can get transactions done and stuff like that?
Well, now with the process has changed.
Right.
Because before, it used to be that the insurance was always the last thing on the checklist of all the realtors. So they would, there's no problem. Right. You get the insurance, so the loan, and the deal closes. Mm-hmm. Now the insurance is the number one issue because it's very difficult.
So you get the loan and then you get your insurance.
Correct.
Okay.
And then with the California Fair Plan, which is the last resort, which is happening a lot now, there's a process in place by the Department of Insurance that you have to receive 3 declinations as an insurance broker in order to approach the California Fair Plan to offer a policy. And there's a little disclaimer that you have to sign that it's been this process has been followed. So it's it's bizarre. I've never seen anything like this in my 35 years. And even like Lloyd's of London, all these traditional companies that would like swoop up when they see an opportunity because there is a crisis, they're gone.
Well, don't you think in some ways I forget, the years all run together, but we had, what was 19, we had the bad ones, but then didn't we have 2018, wasn't 2018 kind of a light year, and we thought, okay, maybe some of the tables will start evening out a little bit, and then we got wiped out again last year. Do you think some of that's to where if the insurance companies can see, okay, this will be peaks and valleys, but they will level out, but right now they're not seeing any, so they can't run their risk models, right? It's all a numbers game.
Correct. They can't run their risk models, and everything that they thought was okay to insure no longer is. You look at all the way, that all the developers have been encroaching into these different areas that really are, wildland urban areas that basically the WUIs, as you call them, the wild urban interface, because there's fire. And there's a lot of companies that are out right now that are developing all these risk modeling tools using different components to determine what will burn and what won't burn.
question on the urban interface, that you're talking about there, is the fire that's burning in El Dorado County right now. We have some of that here in Calaveras and in the foothill counties here, but our population densities as a whole are lower. You're going into some areas there from up that Highway 50 corridor, up that Highway 80 corridor, to where it's similar topography to here, but there's a lot of rooftops.
Yes.
And so, it's a different, how's that going to be, is that, I know they're talking about trying to, you don't want to hear the words about depopulating some of the interface areas, but do you think we may come to that at all, some of that?
I think so. I think that's going to happen.
Okay.
I think that, there's going to have to be, just like there's a thinning of the forest, there's going to be some thinning of the homes too. But also people are going to have to work with CAL FIRE and other agencies to determine how to harden their homes.
Right.
Have the proper roofs to make sure that their gutters are clean. I remember I went on a drive-through of the Butte fire with CAL FIRE, and I was amazed how some homes were completely intact, others were not. And I asked the chief, I said, hey, why is this one good and then the others are gone? He said, because they had the defensible space and they cleaned all their gutters and they had wire mesh in all their venting. That was, very, very small, less than an eighth of an inch.
Right.
Those are all the critical components that will prevent a fire.
I took the back gutters off my house, and I don't think I'm going to put them back on. I just think it was one of those things. They were repaired and all, but I was like, you know what? We're just not putting them back on. We're just not going to put, there's one less place to. Yeah, maybe that's not the solution, but part of that was from a fire thing. It was like, well, if there's not a gutter on the back of the house, that's one less place for it to land. So
exactly.
Okay. Instead of just doom and gloom stuff, let's say on the positive side of it is, is there a checklist now to where if a house is, metal roof, all the rest of this stuff that they can work through the process? Is there a positive list as well?
There is. There are some other insurance companies out there that are basically just writing insurance for wildfires.
You happen to work for one of those companies,
Oh,
don't you?
yes, I do.
Pray tell.
I was going to be, I was going to kind of do this, that I was, like non-committal.
Yeah.
But we have our own proprietary application.
Okay.
That is geared towards wildfire.
Got it.
And so it's, we ask us specific questions like, make sure that there's, dual pane windows so that prevents a fire, because if a windows pop, easiest thing.
Ingress, yeah, okay.
It's also too, we ask about the venting. Venting is extremely important because of those flying embers.
Yes.
We've been watching a lot of these little spot fires that are starting from all the fires going on now, and that's a number one thing that starts a lot of the homes. It catches up on the roof, gets in the gutters, as we talked about. Make sure that you have, the gutters are either clean or they have some type of a screen over them.
Right. Or removed.
Exactly. Exactly.
That wasn't the best solution, but it was like once everyone was like, yeah, I'm not gonna. It's like, nah, we're just not gonna put them back up.
True, that's true. And then to also look at the facts like the eaves on your home. If are they open, it means they stick out. Easy for embers to get up to the roof, or if there's any type of like a deck that can get in there, and to make sure that. Do not store your firewood under your deck or against your home. I see that time and time again, or people just leave, leaves or even the bark, which is great because it looks better and it keeps the dust down, but it's a huge fire hazard.
Are you seeing any? It was funny. I was talking like Bathroom Machinery in Murphy's. They were selling rooftop sprinkler kits. And they thought they were going to sell a lot of them because it seems like a logical thing to where if you have a fire that's coming through the area, you start up the sprinklers on the roof of your house, and it's kind of, and the moisture, they didn't sell almost, like 2 or 3, they didn't sell. And are you seeing things like, maybe a technology solution to some of the stuff that people aren't doing that they should? I mean, I know that goes into water usage. You have to have on-site enough tankage to be able to run them, when there's a risk profile. But you would think, they've talked about internal sprinkler systems for houses that are part of the code.
Exactly.
Now. Why not some more voluntary issues to where you put on a rooftop sprinkler system? It seems like that would almost be a low-hanging solution to some of this. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I think you're right. I think that's something that's good, but that has to come from the planning department, or if they're
Right.
going to develop an ordinance. Insurance companies, since we're private companies, we can't mandate things like that.
But you can.
We can recommend.
But you can make, if you do this, we will give you a policy.
We can recommend, right, but we can't mandate.
Right.
So, but I think that would be a very good idea, because like you said, it is code. Any
Right.
type of new construction has to have interior sprinklers. And the same thing should go for the exterior, as we're seeing all these fires that are just unbelievable. And
Yeah.
I don't know where where it's going to end up, but we're already set to have a worse year than last year.
Well, we were joking about before we started. The one good thing is, if we have a few more years like this then we've burned all the fuel. Right? We've reduced the fuel load that it's.
Yeah, I mean that's you say that in jest, and all that true, but
there's.
But the chaparral, all those particular brushes, they grow back right away. I remember with the Butte fire, there was a fire the next year.
Yeah, yeah. And in some ways, those can almost be worse. With the brush, those fires that are just in the ladder fuels, so to speak, they just go crazy.
Exactly.
Okay. Practical stuff then. If somebody is in the middle of a transaction, looking to do a transaction, you were saying that your company does risk profile, for fire insurance stuff.
Correct.
What's the list? I know we got part of the way down through it. You said make sure dual pane windows, metal roof. Is that where are you
metal
looking?
roof is good. That's a good thing. We
just
ask
no shakes or any of that type of
exactly,
stuff, right?
Wood
Okay.
shake, yeah.
That's been gone for a while, yeah.
Right, but you still see it.
Okay.
You'll see it especially along the coast. There's a little more of the wood shake, and which is just a tinder box. That's very, very dangerous. But again, it's about the gutters. It's about the, like I said, about the venting and what type of eaves that a home has. And those are the big questions.
Those are the ones. Okay.
Right. And that's geared specifically for wildfire.
Yeah. Cost of where insurance policies are now, have they started to settle at all? Are they still pretty?
No, the FAIR Plan just received another 15% increase. So the prices are just going through the roof. And then if you're able to get a policy that's on a surplus lines, which is basically not a policy that is by a regular admitted insurance company, those are through the roof, like Lloyd's of London. Those are very high. So we're seeing the prices go way, way up. And with the FAIR Plan, the commissions are going down, down, down.
Right.
But it's an interesting time, because the FAIR Plan approached my firm several months ago to see if we could help depopulate their book of business, because they were like about 40 million in premium maybe 2-3 years ago. They're now at 400 million and growing every single day. And I'm sure most of these homes that are burning in these areas are insured by the FAIR Plan. And so what's that going to do to their profitability? Where's the extra money going to come from to pay for all these things? So they're asking other people like myself.
That whole thing called the general fund, isn't that right? I mean, it would have to be an insurance bailout almost, right?
It comes from all the different insurance companies that are part of the pool.
Right.
Exactly. And so it's a really interesting and very sad situation, because we don't know how to predict these fires like we used to. I mean, things are just so different now. Climate change is a major component to this.
I just think, I was talking to somebody this morning, this is a little bit off topic of the insurance, but I think maybe we need to, there's been a lot of reasons that volunteer fire departments have dwindled, the number of volunteer fire, because big ones have been from liability issues and stuff like that, the amount of training you have to have. But I think on sometimes like these fire incidents, is maybe you have a lower. I mean, you don't need a frontline firefighter to do structure protection. Maybe it's the older guys that still have a unit that, it's not a truck that you're going to run everyday routes, but the pump still works and it can get there. Maybe you end up with, because right now, like this fire in El Dorado County, there's no bodies on it. They don't have enough bodies to put on this fire. And, maybe we need to really look at how we allow volunteers in and stuff for just things such as structure protection. You have a group of guys from a neighborhood that they've got an old beat up fire truck that's in their neighborhood and their structure protection. They make sure that the perimeter and everything else, and you could qualify guys for structure protection and stuff like that. I mean, maybe it becomes an ancillary part of an HOA group or something to where, you've got an old beat up truck, old fire truck that tank still, still runs and pumps still. It's not a frontline engine, but maybe, am I crazy on that we may need to start seeing something like that at all?
I think that's a good idea. I mean, because we need more bodies. I was reading today about how firefighters being pulled from the Dixie fire to go over to the Calder to, now there's another fire in Clear Lake. Right. And so it's the resources are very thin, and so anything to do to help. But the public, please just evacuate.
Oh no, yeah, of course, yeah. But I mean, I'm just saying but to drive down some of these risk profiles and to maybe as community stuff. Maybe we need to relook at some of our fire suppression practices again. What we've done has worked so well for so long. All the mutual aids, the professionals, all the rest of this stuff.
Correct.
But maybe there's a plate, because the guys that aren't going to run the EMS calls, that are not riding the truck, they're only there during a fire incident, to do structure protection or something like that. Somebody said, I thought, what, that actually makes sense.
Sure.
It was, it doesn't solve the insurance problem.
But and I think that the governor should appropriate more funds to the firefighting cause, and then make it so we have seasonal firefighters, that when the fire season is here, to have people so that we have the manpower to fight these fires. I think that's one of the things that we're gonna, that will help quite a bit.
And they did up the funding this year significantly, though, didn't they?
They did.
They brought on more tankers. They brought on.
I think it was. I can't remember the exact number, but it was really a big number.
Yeah.
And so it's something that just needs to keep going, and then we also need to have a good insurance commissioner that understands what's happening and why we are in a crisis that we are.
Yeah. Do you think it's going to take a couple down years in a row for things to start to where people think that they'll be able to have predictable models for the insurance market to normalize again? Or if we're in this cycle to where it just won't?
Well, right now we're in that cycle where it won't. But if we have, the drought is ended, we do get some rain, that there is, people are a lot more, as I've seen, people are a lot more conscious about the fire situation. It's like sometimes I'll go to one of the local cafes and I can overhear people talking about fire insurance. I'm like, wow, I'm not so boring, am I?
Yeah. A subject, an uncomfortable one, is how many people are just going uninsured.
It's a sad situation. There are a lot.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Maybe older, where they have a structure that's paid for. So,
that's the thing. It's like sometimes there's been people that they've cashed out on their home in the Bay Area. They come here, they build their dream home. They don't have a mortgage. They don't need to have insurance.
But they have a limited pool of funds as well, right? To where this pile of funds has to last them.
And so then if their house goes down, what's happened in Mountain Ranch, there were several people with that particular situation happened. You're homeless. And that's a terrible situation and place to be. And I really hate to see people do that, and so that's why why we have insurance.
Right. But it has to be affordable at some level to where otherwise people can do that risk reward
Well, it's almost like another property tax because the prices that I'm seeing.
So that's what you're seeing, basically, it's about the property tax equivalent?
Sure.
Okay.
It's anywhere from, like I'm seeing for an average home, it's about $35,000 to $4,000. I've seen quotes up to 60, to $100,000. Can you imagine spending that on your insurance? There are people that they are, because they want the coverage.
Next door to me in Arnold, there's a older couple that's building a 3,300 square foot new custom home right now, and I was thinking insurance. When this coming through, I was like, man, I wonder what their insurance is going to run on that thing. I mean, it's new, so it's new construction. They're probably meeting all the guidelines, but I know that just their cost to build, I think they're running at about $350 a square foot. So you figure 3,300 feet times 350.
Sure.
That's
That's going to be a hefty premium.
Yeah.
Plus all the custom, because you want replacement cost, so you want everything for the same like, kind, and quality materials.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to add up too as well. That'll change what the rate that will be charged.
Yeah. Let's say you were insurance commissioner. What would you do in this state that was different? I mean, what's the what if? What would you do to the insurance market in California right now? What would you do?
What would I do?
Yeah.
I'd start a state-run insurance company.
You would just do a public pool.
Absolutely, much better than the FAIR Plan, because the FAIR Plan is not one. This one would be run by the state, just like the workers' comp market.
Okay.
Exact same type of scenario. I had a conversation with the insurance commissioner about doing this several years ago, and way over his head.
Okay. So basically, you just make it into a public pool.
Absolutely. And I think that's the only way that we can drive prices down, because you look at the state fund now, where it was like the FAIR Plan, it was the market of last resort for workers' compensation. Now it competes with all the private companies that are in here, and it's very profitable. It returns dividends all the time.
Are there any other states that are doing it? Are there any models that you could follow?
That's a good question. I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, I know some other states don't even have a FAIR Plan, like Colorado.
Right.
So, there's a lot of folks that are just out of luck.
But we're kind of the tip of the fire hose, so to speak, on this fire stuff. So you think just turn it into a public pool like workman's comp?
Exactly. I think that's the solution.
Okay.
And I think that's what's going to save the state and also the real estate market.
And it would make sense for the state to do it because it's an actual investment in property tax revenue, all the rest of the stuff. Because if you're in some ways you're insuring your future revenue pool for the state, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, all the property taxes, everything else that goes along with that, and all the, like you look at here, we're second home dwellers. I mean, all the turnover and all the revenue that comes from a tourist-based economy.
Right. Right.
It's the right thing to do.
Are you seeing are rates for second homes significantly more now than for primary residences, or not that much of a difference?
It's the same.
It's the same. Okay.
It's seeing the same, and then with the Airbnbs, we're seeing a lot of that, and that's actually harder to get now too, because a lot of insurance companies aren't offering that because of there's a lot of turnover, vacancies, things like that.
So the risk profile goes up if it's an Airbnb, right?
Exactly, or if it's somebody that's renting a home, which you don't see very much now.
Is there enough data now that shows that if something's on an Airbnb or something that the risk profile is higher?
Oh yes.
Is there enough now? Is it?
It's from the liability. There's there's a lot of claims. I had a couple of clients that they had a home and then I personally didn't insure, but they told me that they did a lot of Airbnb. And they just said every time they had to come in and clean it up because it was just trashed. And then the liability issues of, people are having fun and things can get out of hand.
It's like driving a rental car.
What was that movie on MTV?
Yeah. All right, I guess we've got about 5 minutes left. So if you want to know, we've kind of been all over the map on this. If somebody's looking for useful takeaway information to take away on insurance markets and things like now, What's the elevator pitch? What's the elevator summary for the insurance market right now?
Shop.
Shop. Okay.
Look around is the best advice I can give, because the other day I heard State Farm and Farmers are back in the market now. So it's like you've got to inquire everywhere. Call a broker to find out and have them shop for you too.
Right.
Just compare and and get a fair plan quote, just to have that backup, so then you can see what coverage that you have, because the fair plan only offers just for fire insurance.
Right.
Doesn't cover the liability, theft, all the other things.
So you're still going to need another policy.
You need a second policy, and then now there's another policy I heard that's going to be on excess property above the fair plan, so that the fair plan only writes to $3 million. Anything above that, if your home is worth that much, you need that type of coverage. There's going to be a policy out there for that.
And you handle all those policies?
Oh, of course. I just think about them all the time, John.
But also, I think your company's fascinating, the fact that you guys have done. You were one of the first ones to really throw tech at it, right? I mean, to really go down to the zip code level as far as risk profiles and stuff. Am I stating that correctly?
That's correct. I mean,
okay.
We have a model that uses probably over 100 different components,
right, into
determining what is a good risk to insure. The other firms that are out there have used maybe 3 or 4. It's like slope, wind, things like that.
Yeah.
Well, we've brought in climate change. The folks that also helped us develop this particular model developed the models for CAL FIRE as well as for the Public Utilities Commission. And then the 2 founders of the firm that I work for are retired rocket scientists.
Got it.
And so it's something that we know what we're doing. Our accuracy right now is running about 97%.
Really?
Yes.
Very nice.
So we know what we're doing.
Right.
But it's still a hard situation to get more customers and get the insurance companies interested.
Is some of it? How much of it is just a messaging problem? How much of it is people don't just, their frustration is partly messaging. Yes, there's going to be structural frustrations because of that, but how much of it is just messaging?
Well, I think the big thing, John, is it's about price.
Yeah.
And it's insurance has become a commodity.
Right.
Or it used to be a service. Now it's a commodity, and that it's an extremely important component. It's all about the price, and
right.
We have to get the prices so that they're affordable for the consumer.
Right. And when's the insurance commissioner term up? When is that?
That's next year.
Huh. We may be talking to. Just thanks, Tom, for joining us. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. And the phone number, I think we flashed it up on the screen as far as the number to get a hold of you to get some insurance.
Great. Thank you so much for your time, John.
Thanks.
Okay.